Back Look Cinema, the podcast.
You will become a trained weapon. Trained to kill, not kill. A trot, kill. Meat of cow, kill. American assassins, kill. Like butchers. Masters of Shenanigans, since the dawn of time, have killed to promote harmony and to bring about a more peaceful humor to the entire community. We have done this throughout history. For example, Genghis Khan, the Persian boy, Alexander, Robin Hood, a bandit, Louis XIII, Napoleon. Oh, come on, Napoleon died in his bed. Wrong. All of them, perfect assassinations. Hello, friends. My name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. Welcome back. It's the 182nd episode of Backlook Cinema, the podcast, where we take a look back at the movies of yesteryear, especially the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that extremely strange-looking Asian man over there. I'm sure he's not a Caucasian man with Asian makeup on. About Backlook Cinema, the podcast. Thanks for joining me once again, and I want to talk about a movie that have been kind of like the soundtrack of my childhood. I don't know, maybe I'm overstating it. I know I can tell you that I've watched this movie a lot. Pretty much every time it came on television. By the time I started watching this movie, it played on television regularly, like on regular network television with commercials. And I just enjoyed it. It was thrilling and enthralling. So I saw this movie a bunch, and I can't tell you how many, but I don't know how many times I've watched it all the way through. Probably not that many times. It's just that if I were home and I was flipping the channels and it was on TV, I was watching it from wherever it was. I was watching the movie. So the movie that I'm talking about is Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. It's an unfortunate title, and it's not even a good title, even if it was the start of a series that it was supposed to be. Like, I remember reading the title and then watching the movie and waiting for the sequels to come out, and the sequels never came. And, I was eternally disappointed that they never continued the series. So this movie starred the late, great Fred Ward, and he headlined one of my other favorite movies, Tremors. Fred Ward was born on December 30th, 1942 in San Diego, California. He was part Cherokee. He was a military veteran, having served 3 years in the U.S. Air Force. Outside of that, he had various forms of employment, like he was a boxer, a lumberjack in Alaska, a janitor, a short order cook. His film career began in Italy, where he dubbed Italian films into English. From these humble beginnings, he became a beloved character actor in Hollywood. He passed away on May 8th, 2022, at the age of 79. So I wanted to talk about Fred Ward a little bit because I think that he had a not insignificant impact on the entertainment that I had in my youth. So let us talk more about this fantastic movie in the opening credits. Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Officer Samuel Edward Macon was a beat cop who was killed in the line of duty and reborn as an unwilling recruit for a shadowy organization known as CURE, or C-U-R-E. Given a facelift to hide his previous identity, Officer Macon was reborn as quote-unquote Remo Williams. Remo is put through an intense training regimen in the deadly Korean martial art of shenanigans by the mysterious Master Cheon. Remo's assignment is to investigate a U.S. Army weapons procurement program of the accident-prone Grove Industries AR-60 assault rifle, a horrible weapon that would cost the lives of hundreds of U.S. service members were the government to actually procure them. Grove agents make out that Remo Williams is on to them, and he must fight a gauntlet of murderous agents to get to the greedy corporate mastermind. Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, was released October 11th, 1985, produced by Dick Clark Productions and Orion Pictures. It grossed over $14 million in the U.S. and Canada, on a reported budget of $50 million, according to cineoutsider.com, movieweb.com, and thebedlamfiles.com. And the reason I brought up the sources of the budget is because the place where I normally find the budget, which is on IMDb, did not actually have budget information for the movie. It just had the box office take. So I had to go through a bunch of sources. Obviously, the first place I went to was Google, and the Google AI suggested it was $40 million, but that was incorrect. A bunch of other sources had, there was one source that said it was between between 10 and $12 million. And then other sources puts it squarely at $15 million. Now, obviously, movie budgets are kind of shadowy and hidden anyway, right? We don't know what the actual budget may be, only what the studio reports or claims that the budget is. So from my research, turns out to be $15 million. All this is to say that it just shows that this movie was a huge bomb. It didn't even really make back its production budget. If we translate it into today's dollars, it would mean that the movie would have grossed over $41 million had it been released today, and the production would have been about $44 million. So it's a loss. It's a significant loss for the studios, which is why they did not continue the series. And later on, I get into like the inspiration what the studio was trying to do when they created this movie series and from where it came. This movie was starring Fred Ward. He played Samuel Edward Macon, also known as Remo Williams. You may have also seen Fred Ward in Shortcuts, the aforementioned Tremors, Chain Reaction, or The Right Stuff. Joel Grey, who plays Chiam, has also been in Cabaret, Dancers in the Dark, and Choke. Wilford Brimley, he plays Harold Smith. You may have also seen him on The Natural, The Firm, or The Thing from 1982. And I talked about that movie on a podcast called Retro Made with Katie. And that was season 1, episode 12. And that was a fun movie to talk about. Another funny thing is that if you have a picture in your mind of what Wilford Brimley looks like, an older man with a walrus mustache, he doesn't really look like that in The Thing. He's kind of hard to identify. So it was fun looking at an actor and discovering, oh, that's Wilford Brimley. And I also remember him from the diabetes commercial. Up next is J.A. Preston. He plays Con McClary. And you may have seen him in A Few Good Men. I covered that too, I think. He's also been in Body Heat and in Real Life. For some reason, I had this idea that he's been in a bunch of blaxploitation films, but he's actually been in a lot of prestigious movies. And he's almost always played like a very dignified person. George Cole plays General Scott Watson. You may have seen him in Transformers, Dark of the Moon. Or maybe he was voicing something. I think he was probably voicing one of the Transformers. He's also been in Kramer versus Kramer and the Stepford Wives. I can talk. Charles Cioffi plays George Grove, and you may have seen him in Shaft from 1971 or Newsies. Kate Mulgrew plays Major Rayner Fleming. She's been in Camp Nowhere and not a whole bunch of not a whole bunch of movies. She's mainly been on television, and most people would know her from her television and maybe even video game appearances on Star Trek Voyager. Patrick Kilpatrick plays Stone, and you may have seen him in Minority Report and Death Warrant. And he's one of those character actors that got that face. Like when you see his face, you kind of recognize him. You'll see his face on screen and be like, oh yeah, it's that guy again. This movie was directed by Guy Hamilton, and he's directed a fair amount of pretty good movies like Live and Let Die, or Goldfinger, or The Man with the Golden Gun, or Diamonds Are Forever. You'll notice that all of these are James Bond movies, and there's a reason for that and why he was brought in for this movie. He's also directed Battle of Britain, The Best of Enemies, and The Devil's Disciple. This movie was credited to, as the written credit goes to Richard Sapir, Warren Murphy, and Christopher Wood, and there's an asterisk by Christopher Wood's name. So Sapir and Murphy wrote the Destroyer series of 150 pulp novels that features the character of Remo Williams. The movie is based on this popular series of paperbacks. They're basically there are lots of this style of paperback books, and basically that lone adventurer that goes about solving world situations, I guess. A Charles Bronson type of maverick hero or vigilante. Christopher Ward also wrote some James Bond movies, including The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker, and he also wrote Seven Nights in Japan. Now, even though Christopher Ward was credited with writing the screenplay, director Guy Hamilton admitted in an interview with American Cinematographer magazine that he rewrote the screenplay when he was hired to direct the picture. He also came up with the Statue of Liberty chase when he saw the statue undergoing renovation and realized the potential of the location. The music was composed by Craig Safan, and I really like the theme of this movie. If I were to pinpoint one of the things that I remember about this movie, it is the theme song or the score of this movie. That's what I remember most about this movie. And it left the greatest amount of impression on me was this music. And it's like an action theme with Asian inspired and military march elements added to it. And I think it's absolutely glorious. He's also written music for The Last Starfighter, Major Payne, The Legend of Billie Jean, and lots of TV show themes, including Cheers. So that's it for the opening credits. Please check out my shop at backlickcinema.com/shop, and also still trying to set up Bazaar de Alonso. I'm getting around to it. And also, I want to mention that I had an appearance on the Idle Ride podcast. And we talked about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 3, The Path. What's interesting about that is that they asked me to be on the show, and I was already watching The Last of Us. I had watched all of Season 1, and I had watched the first episode of Season 2, but then I got distracted and busy, and I couldn't continue watching the episodes. And I had to... it was easy catching up to Season 3. I only really had to watch 2 episodes to catch up to Season 3 to talk about it. But I wanted to catch up on the entire series, so I ended up watching all the way to Episode 6. And that was borderline traumatic, because that was consuming a lot of trauma. mainlining all of those episodes at once. So that was a very fulfilling experience. And I'm not exactly sure when that episode comes out, but I believe it'll come out in about 2 weeks. But I encourage you to check out Outright Podcast. It was a blast talking to them about The Last of Us. That's it for the opening credits. And now let's go on to our favorite parts. All right, so as I mentioned, one of my favorite parts was the score, and also I want to see if I can tease out what the theme of this movie might be. I think the main theme or themes is trust and commitment, and in a very weird way, Remo is asked to trust a shadowy government agency, and also he has to trust the man that's assigned to train him. There's a lot, and it's a huge ask because he wasn't asked to be a part of this agency, and he's basically brought into this. It's kind of like a spy / assassination agency of the U.S. government, and he was not asked to be recruited into this agency. He was kind of forced to be a part of it. And, he has to trust them under threat, I guess. I don't know, maybe you can't even really call it trust. He has to be committed to them. And so it's asking a whole lot. And later on, he meets an army major, and she's looking into the type of thing that he's looking into. Their investigations are parallel, so they have to trust each other in order to solve the mystery that's going on. And then you have, as I said, Remo having to trust this trainer, a man who is assigned to train him in the art of assassination, and trust him that he knows what he's doing, that he has Remo's best interest at heart, even though they don't know each other. And then at the end comes to have affection and respect for the man that he's basically forced to train with. So that is what I can tease out as far as the theme of the movie, because there is a lot of conversation about, why should I do this? And the answer is almost, trust me, bro. So, to continue with my favorite parts, because, like I said, I already mentioned the score. I don't think if you listen to it, and the soundtrack is available on, at least I'm able to listen to it on YouTube Music. It is, you just got to go back to it. It's very good. It's one of the best soundtracks of a movie that's out there. I think it can be stated. I will say that it's underrated. I hate to say something is underrated, because often when people use that word, that something is underrated, it's often not. You often hear a lot of people talking about this, that, or the other. I just saw a post on social media with somebody saying how Superman, the Richard Donner Superman, was an underrated movie. And no, it wasn't. Superman, Richard Donner, was a huge hit for a variety of reasons. And Richard Donner is also a celebrated director. So, no, Richard Donner, the movie, Superman, the movie, is not underrated by anyone. But it's a younger guy who doesn't know his history, I guess. So he's calling it underrated. And then there are other examples of this. So I hesitate using that term. But I will say that in my circles, when I hear people talking about movie scores, they'll talk about Star Wars, Indiana Jones, even something like Star Trek. And I can go on and on. It's funny, I'm naming all the science fiction ones. But that, the Lord of the Rings, right? They'll speak poetically about these things. But I have not heard a whole lot of people talk about Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. And I want to put that up there with some of the best themes out there. Some of the best compositions of movie music is it should be celebrated as such. So to continue, in the story of Remo Williams, he's basically, as I mentioned earlier, he starts off as a regular police officer. He sees a mugging and he attempts to stop the mugging, but then everybody, like the attackers and the person being mugged, starts to attack him. And he eventually appears to subdue all of the assailants, and he gets back in his car, and then his car is pushed into the East River. And then as soon as he pushed in the East River, there are divers already underwater, and they rescue him. And he wakes up an undetermined amount of time later in a hospital, and he's been told that he has, because they had a funeral, that there's a funeral scene before they show him in the hospital, and he's been told that he's dead, his old identity is dead, and that he's being recruited into a shadowy government agency, and that he's been given a new identity called Remo Williams. And the name was chosen from, what do you call those things that you, whatever you call those things that you pee in when you're in a hospital, a bedpan. And it was the manufacturer and the city where the bedpan was manufactured. So I think the bedpan manufacturer was called Williams, and the city where it was manufactured is Reno, Nevada. And the man is the agent that's talking to the police officer. He's looking at the bedpan when he tells him that his new name is Remo Williams, and claiming that a lot of thought goes into it. So tells him that he's going to be trained to be a part of this agency, and he really doesn't have a whole lot of say in what he, in his involvement. Now, I thought this was really convoluted. It felt unnecessary to do all of this. And it's not how most stories go as far as recruitment. I guess whoever wrote that part wanted to be different. Like if you wanted to get an unwilling participant in your agency, then what they normally do is, one way they do it is that you get somebody who's falsely accused, or maybe correctly accused of a crime. He's put on death row, and they'll say that, if you want to get off death row, you'll join this shadowy agency, and then we'll give you a new identity. Your old identity will be killed because it's on death row. You have a new identity, you have a new life, and you can work for us. And the only, the problem is that you work for us for the rest of your life, but at least you'll be alive. And that's how they did it in the original novels. And there are versions of that in real life where when they catch a hacker that have committed a bunch of felonies, instead of putting the hacker in jail, a lot of times they'll have them work for the CIA or the NSA or one of the other government agencies. So now instead of a criminal hacker, they become like a white, I think they call them a white hat hacker, somebody who tests security systems, or they'll employ them to hack rival government agencies or stuff like that. So there are versions of this going on, but to kill this man on purpose and then bring him back and says, well, you work for us now, it feels convoluted. It's not exactly fun. And I don't think I paid that much attention to that part when I watched the movie originally. But when I watch it now, I'm like, there's a better way of doing that. They could have, in this case, they could have just stuck with the books. So one of the things that they do is that because they don't tell him that he's going to be trained at first. They just tell him that he's going to be an assassin for them. And they take him to his first assignment. And it's like, you go in that apartment and there's a man in there. You need to, that's going to be your first target. You need to assassinate him. He's a really bad dude that is bad for the government or whatever. So the guy, and I didn't mention his name, but the guy that's with Remo Williams is Con McClary. So Con McClary drives Remo to his first assignment. Remo gets out of the car, breaks into the apartment, and then he's gonna like hide and ambush the man that he's supposed to assassinate. And he attempts to ambush, but the Asian man is like embarrassingly beats him, and that's one of my favorite part. Like he's trying to fight this Asian man, and it's like a child fighting a full grown adult. Like he's so inept at fighting this Asian man. It's absolutely pitiful. And then, as it turns out, the man that he was assigned to quote unquote assassinate is actually the man who's supposed to train him into being an assassin. So the Asian man is Chiam, and Chiam is the master of Shenanju. So, he was just doing the Shenanju on Remo Williams, and Remo just like has no way of knowing how to fight against this art. And so he's informed that Chiam will be training him in Shenanju and training him to be an assassin. Oh, and one of the things that happens, like, because he's asked to assassinate Chiam, he goes in with a pistol. He's going to shoot him. But, it doesn't work. Chiam dodges bullets. He's trying to shoot Chiam, but Chiam just almost walks out of the way of the bullets, and it's impossible to shoot him. And then Chiam gets close enough to disarm Remo, and then because it's a pistol, he slips out the magazine from the pistol grip after he disarms Remo, and he flicks out the bullets from the magazine, and that was funny. So now Remo has to learn how to kill, but also learn how to kill without traditional executioner's tools. Like he has to learn how to kill without guns or knives or swords or that type of thing. He has to learn how to kill creatively. But I want to talk about something that is not so my favorite part. It's a little bit of annoying, and I talk more about it when I get to the trivia. But I'm not. When I watched it when I was growing up, I always thought that Chiam looked funny. He was a funny-looking man, and I couldn't put my finger on why he didn't look right. And then later on, I found out that Chiam was played by Joel Grey, who was not Asian in any way. Chiam is Caucasian, and basically, instead of finding an Asian actor in when did this movie come out? 1985. Instead of finding an Asian actor in 1985, they found a white actor and put him in award-nominated makeup. Like the makeup artist got an Academy Award nomination, and I think he won a Golden Globe. I don't know. I didn't do that much research, but it was a lot of people praised him for this, yellow face makeup, and so that's always in the back of my mind when I watch the movie. Like, yeah, I still enjoy the movie, but I don't enjoy them dressing up a white man as an Asian man. I don't enjoy that at all. I also enjoy the Shenanju training. All of the training that he did was great. It kind of reminds you of other scenes like in The Karate Kid, except maybe a little bit more intense, a little bit, maybe even reckless at certain times. But it was fun. I had a lot of fun watching a lot of the training, and a lot of the training sequences is really the dialogue that goes between Chiam and Remo Williams. So, like, there was a point where Remo is frustrated, and he's like, "Jesus!" And Chiam says, "Concentrate. This is no time for prayer," right? So I liked all of that. So the training sequences in this film are fantastic. Now, the crown jewel of this movie is the Statue of Liberty sequence. It's also one of my favorite parts. If it's in all the trailers, it's in the poster art. It was a feature of this movie, particularly since it was during this time that the Statue of Liberty was going to some kind of like deep cleaning renovation, revitalization project. So there was scaffolding all around the Statue of Liberty, and for like I think 2 years, every time you saw like a picture of New York, you saw the scaffolding around the Statue of Liberty, and that almost became iconic. And so you had the scaffolding around there. The director saw it and was inspired, and so there was this. He created a sequence for it, and I have more about that in the trivia. But it's definitely one of my favorite parts of him swinging around the scaffolding of the Statue of Liberty. He's being chased by construction workers, and they're trying to knock him down. Like he's high up on the Statue of Liberty. He's near the head of the statue, and I think he's there in the first place because I think maybe Cheon and he were doing some training, and they went to the Statue of Liberty to do some training, and he's followed by this agency that he's supposed to be investigating. Basically, what happens is that there is not a government agency, but I really mean a company. So there's this company that's trying to sell these weapons to the U.S. Army. And these weapons are a kind of assault rifle. These assault rifles are like blowing up in soldiers' hands, and it's not. It's not a good weapon. Their weapon is dangerous to the user, and the soldiers don't want to use it. But you have a general who is going to push through buying it anyway. He's going to basically ignore all the safety protocols regarding and purchasing new weapons, and he's going to buy it, and he's under pressure to buy it by this, this greedy capitalist. There's a CEO. He sold a bunch of weapons to the military, and there's this new weapon, and he wants to sell this new weapon to the military, even though that weapon is proven to be unsafe, is killing soldiers. So there's a lot of hanky panky going on. There's a U.S. major. She is investigating the procurement process, and she's noticing that there are a lot of protocols that are not being, or a lot of standards that are not being met as far as purchasing this weapon. She's trying to find who's behind it all. And Remo Williams, or his agency Cure, is also looking into those same things. So the company that's trying to sell these weapons, they start to understand that they're being investigated by Cure, so they're going to set out to kill Remo Williams and whatever other agents that they can find. Since they identified Remo Williams as trying to investigate him, they're going to try to kill him at the Statue of Liberty. So they go and they hire a bunch of construction workers to take care of them, or take care of Remo Williams. So, he's on the scaffolding. They're trying to knock him down. He's not as well trained as he will eventually become. So he's basically running away from these guys, and they're harassing him, trying to knock him off the scaffolding. But then he eventually gets the table turned on him, and has them hemmed up. The entire sequence is action-packed, it's engaging, and it's one of my favorite things in this movie. I like how thrilling it is. I think of all the parts that I've watched of this movie, of all the times that I've watched it, I've probably seen this sequence the most. And the last thing I want to say about this movie is that I really enjoyed the dialogue in this movie. I thought the dialogue was fantastic. You had the banter between Remo Williams and Cheon. You had the banter between Remo Williams and Major Fleming. So Major Fleming was Kate Mulgrew's character. You had a lot of that smart, snappy back and forth between a lot of the characters, but it was more smartly written than I had realized, as far as especially as far as the dialogue is concerned. So I really enjoyed that back and forth between the characters, and especially with Remo Williams. I loved how Fred Ward characterized the way Remo moved, the way he talked, the way he interacted with the people that he encountered. I really enjoyed all of that. And I think that he's one of the reasons why I like this movie so much. He's just a cool dude. Just like you see him, he has that swagger that you try to imitate. And so that's what I enjoy. There's also a sequence at the end where Remo is trained enough where he's imitating Chim. Like one of the things that he does when he's getting away from the people in the Statue of Liberty, he finally gets on ground level and he's running away from the rest of the construction workers, is that there is a pool of cement at the base. Now, I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure if this is at the Statue of Liberty or if this is somewhere else on another scene. But there's a pool of cement and he's getting away from people. And the only way to get away from these guys is to cross the pool. So he runs across the pool of wet cement. And it looks like it's the way he runs across it look like it's maybe just a final coating of cement. And maybe there's something solid underneath that fresh coat. But when his pursuers follow him into, across the cement, they fall into the cement. So really, Remo was running on top of wet cement and everybody else fell into the wet cement. It was apparently a deep pool of cement that they fell into. And another thing that he does at the end is that he learns how to dodge bullets. So he has cornered the greedy CEO capitalist, and this capitalist, brings out his pistol and he starts to shoot at Remo, and Remo is walking towards him at the same time dodging the bullets, and it's like, Remo is like right in front of him, and the guy is missing. It's like Remo Williams just dodging bullets. He was dodging bullets before Neo. And then he gets close enough. He disarms his assailant. And then he does the same thing that Chim did when he first met Chim. He separates the magazine from the pistol, and then he flicks out the bullets from the magazine, because that was the thing that most impressed Remo when he was fighting Chim, and now he got a chance to imitate that. And then he kind of knocks the guy over by a Jeep, and then he walks away from the Jeep. On his way away from the Jeep, he snaps off a twig of a nearby bush, and they're on a beach. There is a trench of, I guess, oil or gasoline, because the Jeep wasn't just sitting there. It had toppled over. And there is a path between where Reno is and where the Jeep had toppled over. And there's a trail between Reno and the Jeep where the Jeep had dripped oil or gas or something flammable as it had toppled over and skidded to a stop. So where Reno is at, he takes a twig, he starts rubbing it with his hand, and the bush the twig that he has catches fire. He drops the twig into the trench with the oil or flammable that led to the Jeep. There's a path of flame that goes from where Reno is down that path to the Jeep. The Jeep explodes, and that's basically the end of the movie. Well, and then they show there's a sequence where Chim runs on water trying to get away from the local authorities. And the last line of the movie is he says, "Chiam, you're amazing." And Chiam says, "No, I am better than that." So that leaves you believing that there's going to be a sequel, but a sequel never happened. And I think that's a shame. So those are my favorite parts of Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. What were some of your favorite parts? Did I miss any? Was there something that you were expecting me to say and I didn't say it? Leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment below. Or otherwise, you can send an email to fanmail@backlickcinema.com. Let me know what your comments are. So that's it for my favorite parts. And now let's talk about the trivia. Some of the actors who auditioned for the part of Remo Williams claimed to be proficient in the martial art of shenanigans, not realizing that it was a fictional martial art derived from the Destroyer novels on which the movie was based. So that's crazy. I know I've heard of like buttering up your resume, but that's a little ridiculous. Joel Grey was offered the role of Chiam several times before accepting it. He kept turning it down because he didn't think he was the right kind of actor for the part, and he had no previous martial arts experience and received none once he was cast. What changed Grey's mind was meeting with Carl Fullerton, the film's makeup artist. Grey said that he would take part if Fullerton could successfully make Grey look like an 80-year-old Korean. Fullerton gave it his best shot. He got an Oscar nomination for his work. And this is the part that's kind of a bummer for me. Like, they really, really, really tried to get Joel Grey. And it seemed like it's almost like he was targeted, even though Joel Grey isn't anywhere near Asian. As a matter of fact, the December 2nd, 1984 LA Times announced that the casting of a Caucasian actor, that being Joel Grey, as the Korean Shenanju master Chiam, caused discord between filmmakers and the Los Angeles, California Asian community. Producer Larry Spiegel commented that an international search was conducted for an Asian actor, but Grey was chosen both for his acting and acrobatic ability necessary for the role. Obviously, these are all lies. There is no way that they did an international search for an Asian actor. They could have found an Asian actor in Los Angeles who could have played Chiam, but they refused to do it. And I personally believe that this is a racism. I really do, because there's no way first of all, they could have easily found an actor. I think Jackie Chan was active at this time. They could have gotten Jackie Chan to play the Chiam master. They could have gotten a bunch of Asian actors. And I mean, if they really want to be authentic, they would have gotten a Korean actor, because I'm pretty sure that there were Korean actors that were active at the time. I'm confident that there was a significant Korean community in Los Angeles. But if they couldn't find specifically a Korean actor, they could have definitely found an Asian actor, because this movie was being made for an American audience, and Americans can't tell the difference. At least there aren't any Asian Americans that could tell the difference between one East Asian and another. So they even kind of make fun of it in the movie. So there's a scene in the movie where Chiam is providing a lesson for Remo Williams, and Remo says something like, are you going to just be giving me Chinese philosophy all day? And then Chiam strikes him in a way that kind of paralyzes part of his body, and to the point where, and then at the same time kind of slams Remo against the wall. And Chiam says, "Chinese, I am Korean. Korean is the most, something like the most graceful creature that ever walked the earth," or something like that. And that's the thing about Tim. He is like Korean, and he's so proud of being Korean. He talks about how great it is, the Korean culture is, and how great it is for him to be Korean all the time. So that national pride in his from his origins, or from his people, and yet they couldn't find a Korean actor or an Asian actor to play that role. I cast doubt on that. I don't think that that's true, and that's going to be a kind of a consternation for me about this movie. It's like we're just going to have to agree to disagree. And on top of all that, another bit of trivia is that there was a TV pilot made and aired, but it never went to series. You had Jeffrey Meek was cast as Remo Williams, and Roddy McDowall was cast as Chim. So they was determined to get a white person playing an Asian actor. It was like when you get Roddy McDowall, you're not even trying at that point, right? Because Roddy McDowall was in everything, and I guess it's like they, looking at a white man dressed as an Asian has a certain aesthetic. It's like it looks a certain way. There's a certain inauthentic character to it, right? And you can see it. So they wanted to maintain that by getting another white actor to play an Asian character. And so that was problematic. So moving on with the trivia. Although the Statue of Liberty was undergoing renovation in preparation for its centennial when the film was made, the filmmakers shot on and around the actual statue and the scaffolding, as well as on a full-size replica from just below Liberty's book to the top of her church, which was constructed in Mexico City. Because of weather and scheduling, the sequence required additional photography during the summer following the original mid-December in New York and late February in Mexico shoots. While they were permitted to film around the scaffolding of the statue, they were not allowed to touch the statue itself, hence the need for the replica. The fictional AR-60 rifles are the Austrian-made Steyr all-bullpup assault rifles with custom flash suppressors. This rifle was adopted by the Austrian army in 1977. What's interesting about this bit of trivia is that when I saw this rifle on the screen, I imagined that it kind of looks futuristic, like compared to what the M16A1 looks like. At the time this movie came out, the Army's main weapon was the M16A1. It was the main assault rifle. It was first fielded in Vietnam, I believe. And, it's like when you see the M16, it's what Americans imagine a rifle would look like. So when you see the Austrian-made Steyr AUG bullpup, it looks futuristic by comparison. It has a sleeker design. It's more curvy. And so it's it's something that like most people outside of Europe have seen before. And this was developed for American audiences. So it looked it looks real and it looks futuristic at the same time. And I was delighted to find out that the weapons that they used in this film were real weapons. They weren't like something that was dressed up or made up by a prop designer in Hollywood. These are actual weapons, real world weapons. So that's delightful. This movie was released in some countries as Remo, Unarmed and Dangerous, after plans for a sequel were scrapped shortly after its U.S. release. Other titles considered Remo, just Remo. And another title, Remo, The First Adventure. And then there's Remo Williams and the Secret of Shenanigans. And then there's just Armed and Dangerous. Then there's The Destroyer. To my confusion, I don't understand why it was called, why the movie wasn't called The Destroyer. And apparently the Destroyer name was not used in the title because Marvel Comics owned a character called the Mighty Destroyer. But I don't think that's the reason. Like, Marvel Comics may be able to trademark a name, The Mighty Destroyer, but it would have to be called The Mighty Destroyer. But calling a movie The Destroyer, or even calling a character Destroyer, I don't think it's something that Marvel could defend. And at the time, Marvel wasn't strong enough to defend it, right? So I don't think that that's the reason. Nobody's going to get confused over a Marvel Comics character that nobody knows about, right? So I don't believe that that's why it wasn't called the Destroyer, and I don't know why it wasn't. I do know that they wanted to make this film into a franchise, but there's already a book series called The Destroyer. It's based off a book series called The Destroyer. Why not just call the movie The Destroyer? It makes more sense to do it that way instead of trying to come up with a whole new title. Because once they see it, because this is geared toward the fans of the book. So if you gave it the same name and made it clear that this was based on the book series, then people would get it. But they didn't, and I don't understand why. So another bit of trivia. Fred Ward did most of his own stunts hanging from the Wonder Wheel at Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York. He also did some of his stunts on the scaffolding and the Statue of Liberty, and a lot of the other things that he did. But yeah, the stunts that he did were impressive. The Wonder Wheel was built in 1920. It's called Dino's Wonder Wheel. It's the oldest continuous operating ride at Coney Island. And what's interesting about that is that I had just watched The Warrior, The Warriors, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and The Warriors is prominently featured. Well, the Wonder Wheel is prominently featured in The Warriors. It's one of the scenes that opens up the movie. And if you played a video game, it's the first scene in a video game, the scene of the Wonder Wheel at night. So when I saw the Wonder Wheel at Remo Williams, how it was prominently featured in that movie, I was like, the Wonder Wheel. So this last bit of trivia, the legendary Dick Clark was a big part of the reason that Remo Williams was made. Clark was even a key part of the Statue of Liberty negotiation, where he agreed to appear in a Statue of Liberty PSA. So that, most of my trivia I get from IMDb, but this last bit of trivia came from bulletproofaction.com. So yeah, that was where Dick Clark was his look. I do a commercial for you. How about it, huh? How about it, guys? So that's it for the trivia. And up next is the critics' thoughts. The critics have it at 41%. The audience has it at 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb Reviews has it at 6.4 out of 10. Matt Bronson from Film Frenzy wrote, "A missed opportunity exercise that might as well have been called Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins and Ends." Ed Travis from Synapse wrote, "Remo Williams is one of the most outright enjoyable action-adventure films to ever come out of the 1980s. Science and logic be damned." And I agree. I especially agree at the time that I saw it in the mid-1980s. It was like I was right at the right age to enjoy that movie. Emmanuel Levy from EmmanuelLevy.com wrote, "A disappointing film. Remo Williams was meant as a star vehicle for Fred Ward and as the first chapter of a franchise, but alas, neither thing happened." Chuck O'Leary from Fantastica Daily wrote, "A terrific piece of escapist entertainment that deserved to be a much bigger hit. Makes you wish that there were more Remo Williams movies." And I agree. As a matter of fact, some of these were Fresh Tomatoes, some of these were Rotten Tomato reviews. I agree with all of these guys. we are all in agreement about how we feel about Remo Williams. Also, just one last thing I wanted to say about the title, Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. It's really ambitious, but it's a horrible title. I don't think I ever liked the title of the movie, but I because it promised too much, and in the end, it was really disappointing. I wish they had gone with one of the other titles. Finally, Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins is, as of this recording, available on Prime Video. Remo Williams was humorous, but now why don't we have a look at something that's a little bit different, a little bit kooky, mysterious and spooky, something altogether ooky. Join me next episode for a conversation about the Addams Family. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. Please contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlookcinema.com. Please rate and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like or subscribe or leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. One last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.